The empire, long divided, must unite. Long united, must divide. Thus it has ever been. In the dying days of the Han dynasty, the empire was like a precious vase knocked off its pedestal. As it fell towards the ground, some refused to accept the inevitable and imagined that the worst had passed. The more far-sighted positioned themselves to pick up the pieces. China had been plagued for years by peasant revolts. While the commoners languished in poverty, the emperor's eunuch servants only enriched themselves, with each corrupt act and every extortion thinly veiled as a tax. More angry peasants crossed the line into open rebellion. Like streams joining together in a mighty river, hundreds of thousands of rebels flocked to the Yellow Turban's banner. Their leader was a man named Zhang Jue, a cultist who could summon storms and shadow warriors to do his bidding. However, even among the common folk, the Turbans had many opponents. Many saw their revolt as an affront to the mandate of heaven, which only increased the people's suffering. Liu Bei was one such man. A distant relative of the Han Emperor, Liu Bei was a sandal maker whose sheer charisma made up for his lack of wealth. To some, his unusual height and long ears were signs that he was meant for great things. Yet, when an imperial decree to rally warriors against the Turbans was posted in his village, he felt hopeless. For what could a lowly sandal maker do to save an empire? His spirit soared when he spoke with two other men intent on enlisting. Zhang Fei, a boulder of a man with a temper as easily lit as a dried-out wheat field, and Guan Yu, a majestic bearded warrior. Even though they had never met before, Liu Bei felt he had found two long-lost comrades. They made offerings to the heavens in a peach garden, swearing to become brothers and to fight for the restoration of the Han. We do not ask to be born on the same day, but we ask to die on the same day. With Liu Bei at the lead, the three sworn brothers set out to crush the Yellow Turban rebels. As they hacked away at the Han dynasty's fragile foundations, the Yellow Turbans tore China apart. However, even among the common folk, the Turbans had many opponents. Many saw their revolt as an affront to the mandate of heaven, which only increased the people's suffering. Liu Bei was one such man. A distant relative of the Han Emperor, Liu Bei was a sandal maker whose sheer charisma made up for his lack of wealth. To some, his unusual height and long ears were signs that he was meant for great things. Yet, when an imperial decree to rally warriors against the Turbans was posted in his village, he felt hopeless. For what could a lowly sandal maker do to save an empire? His spirit soared when he spoke with two other men intent on enlisting. Zhang Fei, a boulder of a man with a temper as easily lit as a dried-out wheat field, and Guan Yu, a majestic bearded warrior. Even though they had never met before, Liu Bei felt he had found two long-lost comrades. They made offerings to the heavens in a peach garden, swearing to become brothers and to fight for the restoration of the Han. We do not ask to be born on the same day, but we ask to die on the same day. With Liu Bei at the lead, the three sworn brothers set out to crush the Yellow Turban rebels. Though fierce as tigers soldiers be, battles are won by strategy. A hero comes, he gains renown, already destined for a crown. The Yellow Turbans proved no match for the determined brothers. With the rebellion crushed, the newly promoted Liu Bei seemed destined for a quick rise to the ranks. But the corruption of the court proved that a vain hope. At the time, local leaders would often extort their subjects to bribe the palace eunuchs. Not long after Liu Bei's victory, an officer came to collect his blood money, but the honorable Liu Bei had no coin to give. This sent the official into a rage. Liu Bei had to stay Zhang Fei's hand, lest he kill the man on the spot. Liu Bei would receive no gratitude from the court for his achievements. Though hard to accept, this truth only strengthened his resolve. To restore the Han, he would root out political corruption, tendril by black tendril. A more immediate threat had surfaced, an enemy that threatened to undo the very empire Liu Bei hoped to save, the great usurper, Cao Cao. One fateful day, the father of the great warlord Cao Cao was murdered while traveling to meet with Liu Bei's master. The murderers were former Yellow Turban rebels who had been conscripted by the governor Tao Qian, and Cao Cao put the blame squarely on his shoulders. Cao Cao's vengeance was swift and terrible. Tens of thousands of civilians perished as entire towns were put to the torch. Only exterminating all of Tao Jian's province would satisfy Cao Cao's hunger for revenge. Or so he said. While the atrocity horrified Liu Bei, he realized that Cao Cao, the puppet master behind the throne, truly sought to strike fear into his rivals. However, some puppets refused to have their strings pulled. Having recently killed his own adoptive father, the renowned warrior Liu Bu now sought refuge with Liu Bei. Liu Bei was far from thrilled. Like a sword without a handle, Liu Bu had betrayed every master he had ever served. Yet, with Cao Cao's armies marching on Tao Qian's capital, even a fickle ally was better than none at all. As they stormed Liu Bu's fortress, Liu Bei and his brothers faced off against the legendary warrior in the courtyard. Liu Bu nearly defeated the trio, dealing Zhang Fei a flesh wound and toppling the indomitable Guan Yu. Liu Bei only managed to knock the spear from his hands with a lucky strike. The perennial traitor admitted defeat. Yet when Cao Cao arrived, it seemed that Liu Bu was not ready to accept his fate. "I have saved you before, Liu Bei," he said, and it was true. Once when Liu Bei was lured into a deadly trap, Liu Bu fired an arrow through his own halberd from a great distance. Awed by his skill, the enemy commander retreated, sparing Liu Bei from certain death. "Now I ask that you return the favor," said Liu Bu. "Save me from the blade and you will have my eternal loyalty." "Your loyalty? Your loyalty isn't worth a pint of lukewarm piss." Liu Bei stepped in before an incensed Zhang Fei could execute Liu Bu on the spot. Despite Liu Bu's fickle nature, he was a useful weapon if pointed in the right direction. Liu Bu would keep his life and enter Liu Bei's service. For now. Liu Bei had won a slim victory. Not long after Liu Bu's fate was decided, Cao Cao seized the war-torn province of Shu, and Liu Bei reluctantly agreed to join his court as a commander. Cao Cao held Liu Bei in great esteem, yet there was little trust between the two. Liu Bei had no desire to serve a man capable of such atrocities against the common folk. It was only a matter of time before they would clash again. As they stormed Liu Bu's fortress, Liu Bei and his brothers faced off against the legendary warrior in the courtyard. Liu Bu nearly defeated the trio, dealing Zhang Fei a flesh wound and toppling the indomitable Guan Yu. Liu Bei only managed to knock the spear from his hands with a lucky strike. The perennial traitor admitted defeat. Yet when Cao Cao arrived, it seemed that Liu Bu was not ready to accept his fate. "My lord Cao Cao," he said, "in your hands I could be a deadly weapon. Point me at your enemies and I will make short work of them." Cao Cao considered the offer. After all, why let a valuable asset go to waste over a bit of treason? But Liu Bei could see the lie in Liu Bu's eyes. If this man could skewer his own adoptive father, why would he not do the same to you? To Liu Bei's surprise, his words swayed Cao Cao. "Long ears, you are a crook." Liu Bu screamed as the guards dragged him to his execution. Liu Bei had won a slim victory. Not long after Liu Bu's fate was decided, Cao Cao seized the war-torn province of Shu, and Liu Bei reluctantly agreed to join his court as a commander. Cao Cao held Liu Bei in great esteem, yet there was little trust between the two. Liu Bei had no desire to serve a man capable of such atrocities against the common folk. It was only a matter of time before they would clash again. Liu Bei's tenure under Cao Cao was brief. After the powerless emperor ordered an assassination attempt on Cao Cao, Liu Bei feared he would be seen as an accomplice. He and his brothers escaped and began plotting against his former master. Cao Cao responded with a lightning campaign, forcing Liu Bei to seek refuge with Cao Cao's northern rival, Yuan Xiao. In the heat of fighting, the enemy captured Guan Yu. With his brother's fate uncertain, Liu Bei rode north with tears in his eyes. Yuan Shao proved a benevolent host, but after Cao Cao crushed his armies at the Battle of Guandu, Liu Bei once again found himself without refuge. With Cao Cao's riders at his heels, Liu Bei hurried south once more to seek shelter with the warlord Liu Biao. Zhuge Liang's advice to lure Cao Cao's men into a clearing worked. When the dry surroundings were set ablaze around them, thousands died in the flames. Yet, when news arrived of Liu Biao's death at the hands of the Sun clan, Zhuge Liang had no answer. Tired of war, Liu Biao's son and heir surrendered to Cao Cao, pulling the rug from under Liu Bei. The deaths of Yuan Shao and Liu Biao left Cao Cao unrivaled in the north. Liu Bei's only potential ally now was the Sun clan, killers of his former master. The situation was more dire than ever. Apart from Liu Bei, the only man in China both willing and able to stand up to Cao Cao was Sun Quan of the powerful Sun clan. On Zhuge Liang's advice, Liu Bei proposed an alliance to the southern warlord and led what remained of his army toward Sung territory. Cao Cao himself picked up the chase. Every passing day, the old cavalry commander gained on them. Liu Bei had faced impossible odds before, but this time was different. If Cao Cao caught him, or if Sun Quan refused the alliance, all would be lost. Darkness was creeping up on all sides, but a spark of light still remained. As Liu Bei hurried south, news reached him that Guan Yu was alive. After briefly serving Cao Cao after his capture, Guan Yu had broken with him and was now bringing reinforcements to support his sworn brother, Liu Bei. Perhaps there was still hope. There was a heaviness to the air when the new allies Liu Bei and Sun Quan finally met. Liu Bei had narrowly escaped Cao Cao's grasp, but that was where the good news ended. One by one, the towns north of the Yangtze fell into the usurper's hands, like pebbles torn away in flood. With 200,000 men at his back, Cao Cao now prepared to cross the river and deliver the killing blow. Liu Bei had reached the end of the road. If Cao Cao was not stopped here, it would mean the end of the dynasty that he had sworn to protect. Only with his new ally by his side would he stand a chance, provided their alliance held true. Black smoke filled the sky as Cao Cao's titanic army made camp across the river. From Liu Bei's vantage point atop the red cliffs, it looked like death itself had come to greet him. "We must make the river our wall and battleground," Zhuge Liang said. "I will perform a ritual to the southeast wind to ensure our mastery over the water. Then, you and your brothers must lead the charge on the north shore. With the wind at their backs, they would set fire to Cao Cao's ships and seize the initiative. Cao Cao's men, demoralized after years of war, would scatter in the face of such a powerful push, or so they hoped. Against an army 4 times larger, it was as good a plan as they would get. Yet, it left the future uncertain. If Cao Cao survived, China would remain divided. If somehow he died in the fighting, what would stop Sun Quan from taking his place? After all, while the Sun leader was no tyrant, ambitious fires still burned in his eyes. Zhuge Liang, as always, had a plan. There will come a time during the battle when you must make a choice. Either stand by your word to Sun Quan and gamble with the future of the empire, or turn your sword on your ally and save it from another would-be usurper. As much as it pained him, Liu Bei knew that his advisor spoke true. He had one shot at his goal of restoring the Han dynasty, but when the time came, would he be strong enough to take it? The Battle of Red Cliffs will forever be remembered as one of the greatest upsets in Chinese history. Cao Cao's grand army was routed by the combined might of Liu Bei and Sun Quan, and the strategic geniuses of Zhuge Liang and Zhou Yu. Cao Cao fled with his tail between his legs, never to set foot south of the river again. Liu Bei, who had held true to his alliance with Sun Quan, celebrated the victory with his brothers long into the night. As the tides of civil war finally receded, a new political landscape emerged with China divided in 3. Cao Cao's realm in the north, the Sun clan to the south, and Liu Bei himself, having heeded Zhuge Liang's advice to form a domain of his own as emperor of the Shu kingdom in the west. Yet, even as the former sandal maker sat upon the throne of his own kingdom, doubt gnawed at Liu Bei. He could have betrayed Sun Quan and attempted to fully restore the Han dynasty, but rather than turn on his ally, he had settled for a partial revival. Had that been a mistake? After all, forming his own kingdom was only a first step towards reuniting the empire. But had he acted differently, there might have been no need for this. Perhaps, or perhaps it was an impossible dream. One day, China would be united once more, and Liu Bei had already done more than any other man to ensure that future. The empire, long divided, must unite. Long united, must divide. Thus it has ever been. The Battle of Red Cliffs will forever be remembered as one of the greatest upsets in Chinese history. Cao Cao's grand army was routed by the combined might of Liu Bei and Sun Quan, and the strategic geniuses of Zhuge Liang and Zhou Yu. It will also be remembered as the day the Han dynasty was restored. Liu Bei's betrayal took Sun Quan completely by surprise, and the Sun armies fled, once they saw Zhang Fei's spear skewer their leader. Meanwhile, the defeated Cao Cao met his fate at the hands of Guan Yu in Huarong Pass. Cao Cao's death brought the decades-long civil war to a close, leaving Liu Bei as its sole unlikely victor. As Liu Bei marched on the capital, people flocked to join the victory march. He arrived at the gates of Luoyang at the head of 100,000 commoners, and the emperor greeted him with open arms. Restoring the Han dynasty would take years. Thousands of corrupt officials and rebellious warlords had to be dealt with, but progress was at last being made. Liu Bei had done the impossible. The Han dynasty would rule for many more years, but it was all because he had betrayed a man who trusted him. Had the fate of China depended on one bloody act towards a friend, or could it have gone differently? This question would plague Liu Bei to his grave.